We are live. This is Printed and Pressed. I'm Chris.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm here.
Today, we are discussing the book by C.S. Lewis titled That Hideous Strength. It is the epic conclusion to the space trilogy.
Yeah, we're finally here.
Yeah.
We made it, boys.
That Andrew thought was going to be a slog, but ended up enjoying the third book a lot, I think.
Dude, one, I was willing to say that I had hopes for the second two books, but that first one was awful.
Yeah. It's not great at least compared to these ones and what we know he can do.
Okay, not a single one of these books is the same style though, and it
Nope. Totally different books.
Yep.
This one's probably the most different of the three.
This is not a trilogy. I don't give a shit. There's like some similar characters with similar names. That's it.
Yeah. I'll save those complaints for when we do the series review.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good idea.
But I do feel like he just wrote three different stories and it's a trilogy.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
He drank different alcohol each time, you know.
But
he did tie them together. It's okay.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Again, it's like similar characters.
So long story short, though. We've read the Space Trilogy now. This is the third book in the Space Trilogy. It's only a trilogy linked by the fact that there's the same characters and it's sci-fi and C.S. Lewis wrote it. But other than that, it's really not a whole combination.
You can definitely read each one individually.
There's only one character who shows up in all three books, and then there's two characters that show up in two books.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
But this book opens up with a brand new set of characters that you don't have in the first two. It opens up with
confusing to me
with Mark and Jane. And
I definitely thought going in this was going to be completely unrelated, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm here for this." And then I was like, "Oh, it actually is tying in." Okay.
Yeah, it took a while before Ransom shows up again.
Yeah, well, I thought maybe he just had a different name at first.
Well, he did. He was
it's a totally different character, but I thought at first that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
It actually was a different character though, because he was the Fisher King, remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then
his sister died or something that we don't even know anything about.
Random sister.
Yeah.
Ransom sister, not random.
Yeah, they tie in Merlin and King Arthur. It's just like,
okay,
what?
So is this the second time you've read it, Will?
Yeah, I read it twice now.
So did you catch the Merlin comment in the beginning of the story this time around?
You're going to have to remind me, so probably not. I mean, maybe in the moment.
In the beginning of the story, the Mr. Whatever, the two nice adults that Jane liked, Dimble, Dr. Dimble, he says, here, I've got it right here. Anyway, wait, no, that's not it. Whether Merlin doesn't represent the last trace of something the later tradition has quite forgotten about, something that became impossible when the only people in touch with the supernatural were either white or black, either priests or sorcerers. And he's talking about how it's so weird that we accept Merlin, but and we dismiss Merlin, but everybody else who's like of the same ilk automatically is like a witch, get burned at Salem kind of a thing. That's what he brings up.
Wasn't Merlin like a completely different religion? Is that why?
Well, he would have been like the last of the like a druidic thing.
Yeah.
But he's associated with King Arthur, who's supposedly a Christian king.
It depends on the story.
Yeah.
It's just funny, like, because like we all are, at least according to C.S. Lewis, people accept Merlin.
Because Merlin is like this badass, mysterious dude that has tattoos and jumps out of the woods.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyways, so yeah, I thought that was interesting the second time reading it. I'm like,
he does touch on that. Is an interesting point because we really do like focus on like the arcane magics and not so much what's magics like in real life. It's the same thing as like the fascination with witches and wizards and all that kind of shit. It's just, you know,
we don't really think of druids as magic.
No, but if you play The Witcher, they're very magical.
Yeah, I guess we kind of view druids as just hippy dippies
from years past,
from like the English Isles and their.
I wonder if Tolkien based Gandalf on Merlin at all.
Yeah, I mean, he gives Frodo the ring, which is like the ultimate power. So it's similar to the King Arthur story. But again, getting Excalibur changes depending on the story. So,
right.
Because sometimes he gets it from the lake, sometimes he gets it from a rock.
Mm-hmm.
A rock. Okay.
It's in the stone, man.
You mean the sword in the stone?
Yeah.
A rock. He gets it from Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
It can. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it would be hard to
a
take it from him.
Come on.
Anyways, long story short, though, I thought that was interesting the second time through. But let's go through our summary of the book best we can, because it is a longer book.
Oh, you know what? Excalibur is not the sword he pulls from the stone. That's a mistake. He gets Excalibur from the Lady in the Lake. That is the.
So what's the sword in the stone if it's not Excalibur?
It's not Excalibur. It's a different stone. It's just a different sword.
Okay.
I think Disney effed that up for everybody because they have all the cartoons. That is that sword.
Right.
Someone's going to comment and say I'm wrong. I'm pretty certain I'm right on this because it's confusing that he got two swords, and it's because one indicates that he is king, the other one allows him to maintain his kingship.
I will take your word for it.
Yeah, I trust you, Will.
Don't lead me astray.
I should know this. I read a lot of King Arthur's novels.
And then this book was how many pages, Chris?
Well, it depends on what copy you've got. Because when you look at the online,
the good copy
says like 500.
The good copy is 380.
Yes, the copies that we have
all
bought,
longest book. I can't remember if we decided that or not.
I could not find a longer book. I couldn't find a longer book from C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
So I think it probably is his longest book.
So this is the first one he wasn't restricted by page count, and it shows because this is the most cohesive story he has written.
It is his only cohesive, never rushed moment of. Yep. Well, maybe it is a little rushed at the end, but he's just drawing conclusions, right?
Right. So the book opens up with setting the scene for Jane and Mark. It is the sale of the college property where you find out Mark's on the progressive team, and he had worked very hard to get onto the team of the progressives. And then they show how like they can inevitably steer the council of the college into whatever they want. Then he has dinner with a shady dude. Jane discovers she has weird dreams about things, and
never have dinner with shady dudes.
Yeah, right. Or people named Feverstone. Like that is.
I mean, that's the guy from the first book.
No, Feverstone was
no, Feverstone is divine, man.
Is it? I thought it was the other guy. There was another name.
It's the Devine or however you pronounce it.
Okay, Divine. Yeah, it's not Weston though. Okay. Yeah, it might have been Feverstone might have been Weston. I'm sorry.
Did you explain his last name or whatever?
Did you explain the acronym of NICE yet?
No.
The NICE, we should define the NICE. Let's get that one going. It was like the something institute.
Yeah.
But the NICE is like this progressive organization that's trying to basically take over the grounds of the college. That's who they sell to.
Well, okay, let's also just point out that this is OG as OG progressivism gets. Like the entire movement that was kissing cousins to Nazism.
Pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much what this is.
Throughout the entire early 1900s.
So NICE, just so I can say it real quick, stands for the National Institute for Coordinated Experiments.
Of coordinated experiments, not
of coordinated experiments.
But really what they're trying to do is
socially
carry on social engineering, not the type where you steal engineering secrets, but the type where you literally change people's behavior by running experiments on humans. So they're basically like pseudo-Nazis.
Conditioning the populace to behave a certain way.
Yeah, they're trying to create a world order.
Yeah,
a new world order. But they're doing it via science and science at all costs, and that's one of the things C.S. Lewis goes through. But they're not there yet in the book on this part.
Yeah, I mean it's beyond that though, Chris. It's where science becomes magic and cultic. A cult.
Yeah, when you start to worship the science instead of realizing it's just a tool.
The NICE is very much how you would describe the Nazis. If you wanted to like relabel them in a way that wasn't just like
well, he wrote this Nazis. Right at the end of World War II, so he might
I don't think so. This one was the 30s, wasn't it, or was that the other one?
Okay, I have Wikipedia up.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it's written during the final period of World War II. Maybe that means it has to be.
It's during World War II. Yeah, he wrote this.
Well, if you know much about the Nazis, they had all sorts of weird occult fetishes with like the Vril Society, and
that's why there's such a great movie enemy, because you can basically turn them into anything, like Hydra and Indiana Jones with the whatever. They're always looking for something.
Right. Yeah, they're an interesting. They had some strange societal choices, and that wasn't just what they are publicly known for.
The SS was very pagan.
Yeah, they were very bizarre, and they did a lot of science experiments that you would probably puke if you had described to you.
I mean,
yeah, well, they did a lot of things on twins, and I mean, basically everybody, but
anything and everything.
Yeah.
That's a lot of experiments. That's how we have a lot of the scientific data that we have today.
Sadly.
Yeah, well, they're very good at taking notes.
Yep.
It's one of those things, like science has no morality, so like you have to ask yourself, what are you actually going to learn from this?
It's like all of the data on altitude, oxygen levels,
how it affects you comes from those experiments.
Comes from those experiments. The hypothermia information comes from those experiments.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's gross.
Yeah, we would have figured that out. We just didn't have to do it so brutally.
Yeah. I mean, they did it in a way that was ruthlessly efficient. How long does it take people to freeze to death? I don't know. Let's go test it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not on board with this. I'm not on board with this morality.
Hey, man, that's basically what NICE is all about. The
NICE is science at all costs.
Yes,
and they're trying to create the transhuman movement within it too. But we'll get to that later.
Oh yeah, that was so weird.
They get to then the third chapter, Feverstone takes Mark to the NICE to interview for a position that he doesn't actually like ever get defined for him. Instead, he gets the director just going like, we kind of sort of this, that, the other thing. And he talks in like a way that you never know what he's saying, really.
It's a politician.
Yeah, he's a politician with literally
it's all designed to keep people uneasy and unsure of what the reality and facts are.
Mm-hmm.
It's to make it where you are never grounded and able to think rationally.
But I love his name, but I can't remember what it is now off the top of my head. It starts with a W.
Wilder or something like that.
No. Wither.
Yeah.
Wither. Yeah, he's like withering. Like he's a corpse. Wither. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then at this point, that's when Mr. and Mrs. Dimble tell Jane to go visit what's her name? Something Wood. Oh gosh, but she's she's one of the good people. She's the doctor for Ransom, but you don't find that out yet. And so she tells her to go and visit with
because of the dreams.
Clarify. And the dreams are like imagining vivid dreams, and then you see on the news like those things are happening, that kind of stuff. And I didn't catch in my first read through that the person she sees assassinated is the same person who they use the head of later for their experiments. But that's a different thing. That's not really that important, like a plot point, but it is funny the things you catch on second read throughs of books. So then following that, Mark goes through like a series of unfortunate events. Now he goes through a series of things that are basically
entrapment.
They're training his behavior, and they're entrapping him. Like when he gets there, the one guy's trying to leave the NICE. He gets murdered. Mark loses his wallet, which comes back up later. And then he's kind of stuck there.
The story arc here right now that we're at in this summary is where it's a bunch of events that create the perception of being too far to turn back.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't turn. Like it's too prohibitively costly to him in some way to turn back.
Oh, the entrapment, the thing that they don't tell you, we didn't tell you yet. The book does, is that basically Feverstone threatens his job.
Yeah.
Basically, like if he tries to leave the NICE, Feverstone will get him ejected from his fellowship at the university. So he would lose both jobs and be penniless.
Not just that though, but they also kill somebody who is leaving.
Right. Yeah. So he knows that
everyone knows that guy dies.
He knows there's huge penalties for leaving the NICE. He loses his jobs and potentially his life. At least he figures that out at some point. And in the meantime, he's now been acquainted with that police lady that I can't think of the name of, But I didn't catch the description of her the first time through, but she's like this raggedy, middle-aged woman who's
dude, she is
gross.
She is effectively the same kind of person as Dolores Umbridge in a sense, just without the girly aspect. Like the description of her person is very similar.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, she's like a violence to get my way kind of person. She's clearly been trained to do things that way, and even the director's like, I'm not sure if this is a good idea.
She's an Olga type character.
Yeah, she's like,
when you think of like the very butchy.
Yeah,
she's like a big bodyguard woman.
Yeah,
and she can
takes no shit from no man.
She beats the snot out of people. But I want to know, is it not Ironwood? What the hell? What's her name? I cannot think of it.
I mean,
it's a very masculine sounding name. Hardcastle.
Yeah, there we go. Hardcastle. Right? Yeah.
Or is that the other? Yeah, Hardcastle.
No, it is that.
Yeah.
And then you got, I think Ironwood is the doctor that takes care of Ransom.
Yeah. Hardcastle is her though, because it's just like
she's hard like a castle.
Yeah.
All right.
She's built like a damn castle too.
like a brick house.
Yeah. That you shouldn't.
So then anyways, through like drinking and partying and kind of just awful behavior, Mark learns that he pretty much can like live at the place where he works, the new nice place.
Yeah.
As his own place to sleep.
And they desperately want his wife to come.
And at first he kind of likes it there and he's enjoying himself, but he's uneasy. And then slowly
on substances all the time.
And he slowly finds himself on the in group. And through that, he ends up going to a nice little like small village, like a nice English village, like the Shire, like a nice place, like the Shire in the Lord of the Rings. Picture something like that. And basically they say like, this is cool, but there's nothing of value to science here. So we're going to destroy it. And that's essentially you need to write articles because you're now going to be our journalist who's going to spin every story about the nice in a way that both, and this is funny because he says the right and the left will both enjoy the stories. They'll both defend the nice for different reasons. So you'll spin it like imagine in modern day you got like a Fox News and a CNN. They'll put out one story on CNN and a different story on Fox, both acting like the nice are the good guys and pinning the two factions against each other instead of telling the truth and making both factions hate them.
Oh, like real life.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
You mean where the progressive elements of both parties are the uniparty and they control everything? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the idea. All right. So then that kind of sets you up for Mark's role with the nice. The role that they give him is that he needs to spin everything in positive light for the nice so that they can do whatever they want. And at some point, they want to take over the police / enforcement of law in the area, which means they control the laws, even though they're not on the books at that point.
It's a false flag.
Pretty much,
yeah. False flag where they manufacture a riot and they have the articles to spin the narrative perfectly. They have all the resources for how they're going to put out the riot marshaled already in advance. It's basically a Reichstag fire scenario that they purposely have happen so that they can make what they want occur.
Yep.
Like real life.
The way that they do that is they bring in a whole bunch of outsourced contractors to labor in the area because they bought the woods from the university and they just started like excavating, cutting it down, taking down the forest, breaking down buildings on the campus. They just literally take
it's like Saruman.
Pretty much.
Yeah, kind of.
Fangorn Forest, yeah.
They really just destroy a large swath of what made this town the town.
And the famous part of Bracton is the fact that in the middle of that forest, the Bragdon Woods, they have the well where Merlin supposedly is buried. Merlin. That would be a pretty notoriety. That's not the right word. That would bring some notoriety to the town.
Yeah.
And so they want to find Merlin. They're excavating for him. They want to find him because they believe he's still alive and that he will help their cause. And so once they find out that Jane can like see things, because I think Mark lets it slip to either Miss Hardcastle or somebody that tells them, that's when they decide they want. Or they know.
They just know.
Because they know her lineage, because she's like a tutor or something.
Yeah, Mark doesn't have any bloody clue. And he's just a useful loser for them.
He's a useful idiot, yeah.
Yeah, she's the whole reason that they're interested in him.
They desperately want her there.
So the entire point is they play on his
pride.
Insecurities.
His insecurities, his ego, all of that to try to make him feel important and in an effort to get the wife to be brought to Bellbird.
Right. So yeah, that's basically the whole plot of Mark and Jane in the beginning. Is Mark gets roped into the Nice, and the Nice want Jane. So they try to make him comfortable, but not too comfortable, to bring Jane in, and they want her to accept it willingly. That's important to them, that she's not forced, because they think her gift will go away if she's brought in captivity. Kind of like they couldn't bring Mark in captivity until he was already all the way in. Does that make sense? Like they had trapped him after he joined. So, yep. And then, so now, once you get past that part, now they find out Jane's abilities are real. So she goes and visits with the Fisher King, who turns out to be Dr. Ransom.
At St. Anne's.
And he retains his injury on his ankle from the second book. So there you go. There is some crossover from one book to the next. And basically,
the only crossover.
You come to find out that he is the director of this group, even though the group kind of assembled on their own, and he's just naturally the leader.
He's like a honeypot.
Kind
of draws them all in, and
they have a bear. It's kind of like Winnie the Pooh, I guess. I'm just kidding.
They literally have a bear.
Yeah, what the fuck is going on with the bear?
My favorite part is when he rings the bell and the mice come in and clean up the crumbs.
Yeah, what is? I realize it's supposed to be like he's Adam.
Just loves animals, man. That's it.
Yeah,
he just loves animals. I don't know.
Oh, and there's this whole portion of the book where it's like what is it? The Lagrange versus or how you ever say that word, like whatever, the old school Logers. Was that how you say that? Logres.
Oh, the old nation, basically.
The old nation versus the new nation.
Yeah.
The Logres versus
the
Britain.
old kingdom. It's the old kingdom.
Yeah, the old kingdom versus Britain. It's like, and this has been going on for the entire time this place has existed.
There's always a king of the old King Arthur kingdom.
And hence why Ransom is the Pendragon. So
that's how he's still the Pendragon. And later on, this is important.
Yes, very later on, this is important.
A massive lore dump in the tail end of the third book in the series.
Pretty much. Okay. The next part though is when they take Mark into their private small.
It escalates. It all escalates on both sides.
The Saracen's Head is where you find out that they kept the guy who was beheaded in Jane's dream, or they bought him from the French or something, and they have his head in the basement of their place, and they've reanimated it with like Frankenstein. I think Frankenstein with a whole bunch of cords coming out the back. They've reanimated him.
It's a fancy show to make people believe that this is science, because science is believable, right? Everyone believes in science, but it's actually a conduit. A conduit for what we would consider demons.
Yeah.
Just the bad adils, or how.
This is the closest that C.S. Lewis ever gets to having Sauron's eye.
Kind of, but it's just different.
It is.
Because there's demons and angels concept, right?
Yep.
It's a way for the bad guys to communicate through this head in a way that humans will believe it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then after that, that's when the city kind of gets taken over by the Nice. Before this point, the government still had somewhat control over the city. After Mark sees the head, that's when the riot happens.
Mm-hmm.
And everything gets under the control of the Nice. And then after that, I think this is when Hardcastle kidnaps Jane, and she gets
momentarily,
and they let her go. And then she tries to convince Mark that Jane is going crazy and that he should surrender her to her for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time she's doing this, I'm like, you're the wrong person to claim you can treat his wife. Of anybody at this place, you are not the person he's going to want treating his wife. That is never going to work.
No.
He's definitely not bemused by this idea.
And this is when Jane goes to Ransom and basically joins the merry gang.
Yeah, she's like, I'm out of here.
She's like, it's not safe to go back. So she's there. She's just learning from all of those people. They're having a fun time. Let's be honest, until the next, I guess it is right after this battle that it happens. So for most of the story at St. Anne's, they're just having a fun time eating, gardening.
Yeah, they really don't do anything other than go get Merlin.
They don't do anything. And then a couple of them go searching for Merlin.
Well, based on Jane has another vision of where Merlin might be. So she takes with her multiple men and then leaves. I think pretty much all the women stay home except her.
2 dudes go with her. That's it, man. And they go searching for Merlin. They find him, but he runs away. And they're just miserably dejected there. But Merlin ends up going to Dr. Ransom anyway on his own accord.
Pretty much.
That's how you find it. And then he finds out that that's actually his king, his Pendragon. And he's just like, okay, I serve you. And there's culture shock there because the dude's from the barbarian ages.
Well, and he wants to use druidic magic, which because of the way life is,
he wants to kill a lot of people. Let's just put it that way. Like the definition of Old Testament justice is just Merlin showing up with a sword. All right.
Well, and then one of my favorite characters in this book is fake Merlin that the Knights wind up with.
Oh yeah,
this drunk English man who's naked in a field. They're like, it's Merlin.
He's a gypsy, man. He's just a damn gypsy.
He's just like the whole time he's like not speaking. Like they try to talk to him in like every language you can think of. Like
it's a
Latin,
ton of food, free food.
It's a ton of
he's
food.
Having a great day.
Just a homeless dude that was brought in, and he's just like grunt.
And the best part is he keeps calling them the foreigners to Mark. He's like, the foreigners.
Because he's like an Irish gypsy or some shit.
I don't know. That guy cracks me up. And then the best part after that is when Merlin actually comes there and like controls him. So he starts speaking like Latin and being like the thing they think he is, but he's not. Anyways, that'll be later. So then after that, Merlin and Ransom devise their plan with the Holy Alliance of the other planets, Eldials, who finally show up.
You did miss one part too, though, where Mark was
he tried to escape, and then
not just that, but he tried to find Jane.
Yep.
And has that moment where he is like breaking down in a sense.
Yep. And then Dimble tries.
He gets taken back to the Nice where he's put in his cell, and that's
when they use the wallet, right?
Yeah, that's when they use the wallet and to threaten him with jail time, and they're using him to guard the fake Merlin to try to break him into the inner circle where he can also be turned into like a head.
Yep.
So we're missing a whole part where they're trying to socially condition him with all sorts of mind games, things where it's like there's no pattern to anything, but things appear to have a pattern, but it's all just deception to try to make you think it's chaos.
I want to pull up one of the quotations of Wither because I want to give people a taste of how this dude talks because it drives me insane.
You mean where it's the most says things without saying things?
Yes, that's what I want to get to. Hold on. Let's see here. Here we go. So it says, of course, said Wither, nothing is so much to be desired as the greatest possible unity. You will not suspect me of underrating that aspect of our orders. Any fresh individual brought into that unity would be a source of the most intense satisfaction to all concerned. I desire the closest possible bond. I would welcome an interpenetration of personality so close, so irrevocable, that it almost transcends individuality. You need not doubt that I would open my arms to receive, to absorb, to assimilate this young man. Like, what the heck did he even just say?
I mean, everything and anything to everyone.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like
you say assimilate, though, I get worried.
Yeah, and penetrate. I don't.
No, not interpenetrate.
Penetration.
Interpenetrate. I don't know what that means.
I don't know, man. That's some crazy.
But yeah, this guy just talks in like
gibberish.
But you can catch some some glimpse.
The
of
whole
what
point
the
is
world...
to make you fall asleep and then just nod afterwards.
Pretty much.
Like, that's the entire point of how he speaks.
Right.
Where were we in our summary, though?
Like, he always goes, "You are suggesting if I understand you." Like, this is the kind of stuff he says. It's just ridiculous. All right, sorry. We'll go back up to the top.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Well, there's really not that much more to the summary, if we're completely honest, because they send Merlin.
Okay, then we can get to what Merlin does.
Yeah.
So then Merlin and Ransom devise the plan.
Yeah.
They send Merlin into the nice facility, pretending to be a translator for that guy, the naked
Russian priest translator.
Yeah, exactly.
Of all things.
And they bring him in, and he's basically taken possession of the guy that they have in their holding, and makes him look like the real Merlin. And the whole time, the only way that this man talks is if Merlin's in the room. I think Wither's starting to catch on, but not really.
Yeah.
So then he's like taking him on a tour of the building, and then like the fake head of the Nice shows up to do his tour of the building, and Wither's not there because he's out with the Merlin. And then they are set up for like a giant like get together for the Nice of the Nice of the Nice, whatever. And when he goes to speak, that's when all the crap hits the fan.
He makes them speak. He makes them all speak utter gibberish.
Mm-hmm.
And like
it's basically Tower of Babel.
Yeah. And then he unleashes all the animals that they've been testing and using as experiments to just let them murder these people.
Yeah, like they can't get out.
So Merlin just goes like mass murderer on these folks. It's a war, so I guess he's not really
C.S. Lewis does not care about killing the scientists. He's like, this is great.
Not at all. C.S. Lewis is just like, oh, let's have this one get killed by an elephant.
He's describing like all the zoo animals wrecking these people.
It's like, oh, I don't like this scientist. Let's give him the death by a tiger. Like he just comes up with another way for each.
The thing is, this is based off of colleagues at the school he works.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Probably.
He even has a disclaimer at the beginning where he's just like, now this might resemble some folks, but trust me, it does not.
It's definitely not you, Phil.
Definitely not you, Tolkien. Oh, you're Ransom. Never mind. But then my favorite part is he lets Feverstone get away because Feverstone's the one that's not quite bought into it totally, and also not quite. His feet are in both pies, or his hands are in both pies.
He's ready for it to collapse, and he's positioning himself.
So he lets Feverstone get away, and who's the other one? The Cosser, I think, or Crossy, or whatever the heck that guy's name is from the beginning. He's like the head fellow at the university.
I forget.
Cosser. I think it's Cosser, Crosser, something like that. Anyways, he's not that important to the story. He just escapes from the place. But after
folks that escape,
after this gets done, and basically all the guys get eaten or killed or mauled, then Merlin says, "You must leave this town," and he goes full Sodom and Gomorrah on the place. And literally, there's nothing left.
Completely and utterly destroyed,
minus the Pillar of Salt.
And then. At the end, C.S. Lewis just writes it in a way where everyone's horny. that's his ending.
His ending is one massive aphrodisiac.
Yeah, basically. The bear gets a girlfriend.
Yep. And then the one woman's like, "What are the bears doing? I believe that they are multiplying right now." Except Ransom. Ransom goes off to hang out with Venus and her king, who's actually the real King Arthur, apparently.
Oh, yeah. They just have fun like that. And then Merlin
I'm just like, what were you thinking sending him to Venus, where he's going to be with another couple who literally, under no circumstances, are going to share?
Maybe he marries one of their children.
Maybe. That could be.
I don't know. He never wrote a fourth book, all right?
Yeah, for this series, he did not. Maybe he did, and we just don't know it. Maybe this is like the beginning of Narnia.
Maybe he just thought that the fourth one was too much about his fantasies there on Venus, and he's just like,
Ransom is really Aslan. he becomes a lion.
Yeah, that's what he does. The queen, he goes rawr.
Hold on,
only Chris can do the rawr.
I know. It's so creepy.
Oh, please stop.
So, anyways, this book was a start to finish. It was a banger. Out of the books that C.S. Lewis has written, this one was great.
I mean, this is This is the only full book he's written.
Yes, it's
At
the
least
only
from a
cohesive
fiction.
Start to finish adventure story
Screwtape
or
Letters
fairy
counts.
tale.
No, it doesn't.
Screwtape Letters is start to finish.
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's not really a story. It's just
it's a narrated back and forth conversation, and there's large gaps in that conversation still because it's a correspondence.
Andrew wishes the title of this book was The Horse and His Boy Extended Edition.
Exactly. I really do. I really freaking do. That or the Silver Chair would have been great with it too.
Yeah, Silver Chair was a good one too.
So those are his two best short stories because they actually have the full story arc as a concept. It's not like, oh, climax and then downhill running. Like, but no, if he had done Narnia, if he had simply done
he did
Narnia
like 7 400-page Narnia books.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how amazing Narnia would have been?
Well, it probably would have had a more fluent story.
Well, okay, because he did new world building with every freaking book, right?
He did. That's
like
true.
he would introduce new types of character, like creatures and stuff every time. And it's just like, okay, if he had just took the time instead of writing each individual one as like a story for what was it, a niece, like goddaughter, whatever, like
yeah,
he could have created something that easily rivals Lord of the Rings. Easily.
I think this is the closest he gets to writing a Lord of the Rings style book.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
What's your favorite? Okay, let's get into this then. Now. What's your favorite part of the book?
Dude, there's a lot in here. I have a lot of notes that I took on things.
Did you?
Yes, I have a ton to talk about on this book. But like overall, I love how accurately he does capture the progressive movement in this story. Because as a society, we're very ignorant of the progressive movement's history. But when you realize he wrote this in the 30s, right?
This one was in the 40s. But
in the 40s. Okay, fine, the 40s. It's not a new movement at that stage. It's very old. Like progressivism was new when Teddy Roosevelt was one. Right?
Yeah,
like that's
early
going
1900s.
In the late 1800s, early 1900s with Woodrow Wilson and all that. Like that's the start of progressivism getting influence and really taking a whole different approach to what government's role is in everyday life. Just how people should be controlled by government. But we're kind of, as a society, ignorant to that history. And it's great how this book captures it so accurately in an easy to understand, like, entertaining story.
And I would say that this book does not suffer from the time it was produced in. It's relatively timeless.
Well, the problem is there's always a movement that's trying to do what progressivism wanted to do back then.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's so popular now, I think, because people see the same progressive movement, just not realizing how old it is.
Relabeled.
It's just relabeled. No, it's not even relabeled, man. It's like you'll still see those people call themselves progressives. Now they're a little bit more open with like socialists and shit, but like they're still, socialism's a form of progressivism in a sense.
A form of regressivism.
Well, I'm saying the people who call themselves progressives are socialists. Socialist policies. But
one of my favorite parts of this book is like the whole clickiness of the progressive movement and how it like lures people in. It makes you feel powerful, and then you realize you're just another cog in the machine, and the machine is progressivism.
Okay, early in the book when they're doing the whole debate to sell the land.
That was awesome.
The progressive group manipulated that debate from start to finish. They controlled who said what. They had people to argue on both sides of it. They socially engineered the language used and did utilize the omission of facts and details purposely to catch people off guard and make it an emotional debate at the time. All sorts of things to make it where there was no solid way to mount an argument against them, especially when you had it where how they pinned different factions against each other, even though none of them wanted to see that land sold.
And then the best part was like selling the land will solve all of our fiscal issues. We can pay the fellows more money. We can pay off the debt. We don't have to fix the wall. It's like, wow, this fixes everything. It's like, but nobody wants to actually sell the wood because it's one of the things that attracts people there.
And then they use coercion and intimidation to make their certain opponents, the ones that follow certain rules of etiquette, not actually have their moment to speak.
The old guy that's getting ready to speak and he tells him to basically withhold in a different way. Yeah.
In a very rude and I don't know how to phrase
Wasn't
it.
Wasn't it Feverstone that did it?
He, in a very rude, obnoxious manner that was very unbecoming of the etiquette of that debate forum, and it caught the guy off guard to the point where he was just like, "What the hell?" And he just sits down.
Oh yeah, yep. Because he was getting ready to talk and it was going to be emotional, and so Feverstone basically.
You have to wonder if he actually based that conversation off of something he witnessed at the college.
I believe
feel like he had to.
You do see it. Like, okay, it's no different than when you have those public shamings. The struggle sessions, the definition of that, like that's what happened in China when they had the Mao Revolution, right? The Color Revolution, all that stuff. So struggle sessions are a very popular tool of progressive, communist, socialist movements to stifle debate, make it where people are afraid that they'll be next. And you're just like, you're shut down by overwhelming negativity.
You know, I feel like out of the 3 books, you could probably very easily do like a 20-minute intro kind of summarizing Ransom on the Other 2 Planets and then just do this movie. As a movie. I think you could easily do it. It'd be like a 3-hour movie.
It's better as a TV show, but
or a miniseries. Yeah, that could work. Yeah.
Or not even bring up the other 2 planets. So, like, I think this story.
No, you make the other 2 like a dream.
Like a what? A flashback?
A flashback dream. Yeah.
The thing with Paralandra is it would be very difficult to do because everybody's naked.
HBO could do it.
The whole movie.
Yeah.
They're naked.
There's
I thought about that. I was like, Paralandra would make a great movie. Oh no, it wouldn't. It would be so hard to film that.
There's a moment where Nice is described. It has its own legal staff and police. And their whole mission is that science will be applied to social problems and backed by the full force of the state, just like war.
Yep.
Basically, C.S. Lewis went to Disney World.
Yes.
Well, yeah, Disney, don't they control the property and everything on it?
They do.
Or at least they did.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's a bit different now, but yeah.
I mean, how does that not sound like COVID? Just saying.
Yeah.
Pandemic response. It's kind of that.
Yeah. Actually, when I was preparing for this, there's a whole bunch of videos from the last couple of years talking about exactly that. It's like, did C.S. Lewis actually predict, like, not COVID, but the response to COVID and stuff?
No. The answer is no, because this book isn't a predictive book. It's okay.
The commentary on what was happening at the moment. Yeah.
It documented what was happening, what people wanted to do, and then he projects what the inevitable is.
This book is a repeatable, evergreen, progressive nightmare. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's what happens when prosperity is achieved. When prosperity is achieved, you can have people who act this way.
Yeah, because they'll just
get away with it.
Let's ignore it.
Well,
the common person will ignore it.
Common person will ignore it, but also more people are swindleable. That you can be swindled more easily into the concept that, oh, we're so prosperous we can afford to do certain things.
Yeah.
There was another part too where for this where what the progressive element wanted, as described in the book, is, and it fits perfectly with early U.S. progressives too. So the progressive element wants to take charge of man, sterilization of the unfit, liquidation of backwards races, selective breeding, real education, which is indoctrination through psychological methods, and eventually direct brain manipulation, and what you would consider transhumanism.
You know what we did miss in our summary is Mark in the slightly off rooms where they kept trying to.
I brought it up.
They tried to break his brain.
That's
but
why
we didn't describe it that much though.
Oh yeah, I mean it's using a bunch of things where you're supposed to expect a pattern, a standardization pattern, like stability or repeatability, like something. There's a pattern that's just right? You know what I mean? And then there is none. They break it up in some way that makes it seem bad to drive you insane.
Pretty much. I mean, he wants him to go crazy. Like that's the goal. Because a crazy person who loses their brain is more easily manipulated. And that's the goal. They want him to
if you're reacting on emotions are easily manipulated, facts are not.
And that's another part in here where their whole methodology is careful wording to avoid detection. So they'll manipulate sentiment. So one of the examples in the book is they use the word experimental instead of what was it?
Instead of experiment.
Yeah, experimental instead of experiment.
Because if you say I'm doing experiments on people, that doesn't sound very good. But if you say we're using experimental treatment, it's cutting edge.
And they distorted punishment to be heard as sadism. And then they can manipulate prison sentences to be basically
carried out
unlimited sentences remedial. For life. Because remedial, they can do whatever they want with you because
they're remediating you.
They're fixing you, right? So however long it takes, but
that's how long they'll have you.
Yeah, whereas before, if you have punishment, it was you're punished, it's over, you move on.
Right. And so their idea is we're going to fix people.
Yeah. Their whole thing is now, we can punish you forever. There's no limit to how long we can keep you prisoner. We already mentioned the uniparty concept.
Yeah, they were playing both sides. That was the journalism.
Which, I mean, historically, that's accurate. There's been progressives in the Republican and the Democrat Party throughout U.S. history.
And there have been other parties too, but really they're just different names of pretty much the same thing.
No, I mean, as far as the Republican and Democrat go,
there was a couple parties that in the early America.
None of those were progressive. None of those were progressive.
You're right, they weren't progressive.
The progressive movement doesn't really take effect until closer to the Teddy Roosevelt era.
And then you get eugenics too, which is
so Margaret Sanger and all of that.
Gosh, that woman.
So nice. We mentioned that they thrive on uncertainty.
Yep.
They engineered their own disturbances.
Oh, there was one part of the book that I thought was really interesting. It's about when Jane asks Dr. Ransom about obedience. Do you remember that? It was a really interesting part of the book.
Which one?
You get kind of a deep
part?
Let me find it. I want to quote it directly because it's like you get to peer into C.S. Lewis's thought.
Oh wait! I think I know what you're going to say. I have the quote. I think I have it. You're talking about obedience, right?
Yes.
You do not fail in obedience through lack of love, but have love because you never attempted obedience.
Say something like that.
Yeah. No, but have lost love. Sorry, I had my thumb over lost. But have lost love because you never attempted obedience. That one was.
Second. That's not it. Oh, okay. Let's see here.
Search lost love because that's.
Here we go. So the director, she said, "What? Let's see here. It was not his fault. I suppose our marriage was a mistake. The director said nothing. what would the people you are talking of say about a case like that? He said, I will tell you if you really want to know. And then Jane asks, he goes, they would say that you do not fail in obedience through lack of love, but have lost love because you never attempted obedience.
Yeah.
Is that what you just said? But
that's
kind of
exactly what I just said.
Right. So the next part says, something in Jane that would normally have reacted to such a remark with anger or laughter was banished. And by the fact that she used the word obedience is what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then she starts to have a weird feeling like, and Ransom's like, don't get near me. Like, you don't love me. Stop it, says the treasure. At least that's the way I read it. I was reading it as if she was like falling for the director at that point.
I mean, the issue is she never really respects Mark.
She doesn't, not till the end.
That's the problem.
And then the conversation about equality. She says, I thought love meant equality and free companionship. And that is how a lot of people view a marriage these days.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, equality. We must talk of that some other time. Yes, we must be all guarded by equal rights from one another's greed because we are fallen, just as we must all wear clothes for the same reason. And this is kind of like a continuation of Paralander right there. He says, but the naked body should be there underneath the clothes, ripening for the day when we shall need them no longer. Equality is not the deepest thing, you know. I was like, that's an interesting thing to say. And then he says, equality before the law, equality of incomes, that is very well. Equality guards life, but it doesn't make it. It is medicine, not food. You might as well try to warm yourself with a blue book. And then she tries to say, well, what about in marriage? And he says, worse and worse. Courtship knows nothing of it, nor does fruition. What has free companionship to do with that? Those who are enjoying something or suffering something together are companions. Those who enjoy or suffer one another are not. Do you not know how bashful friendship is? Friends, comrades, do not look at each other. Friendship would be ashamed. Then here we go. It is not your fault they never warned you. No one has ever told you that obedience, humility is an necessity. You are putting equality just where it ought not to be. As to your coming here, that may admit some of the doubt. For the present, I must send you back. You can come out and see us. And in the meantime, talk to your husband and I will talk to my authorities. So he's basically like, go ask your husband's permission. I'm not talking to you anymore.
Mm-hmm. There was not on that topic necessarily, but like, well, I guess there's one other thing with the nice, and that was that it has a very sacrificial nature to
the they're like sacrifice everybody.
Yeah, so like the second someone plays out their usefulness, they're sacrificed, and that's very much how every totalitarian government has ever existed,
or even just cancel culture these days. If somebody's on your team, they keep using them on their team,
and as soon as they'll protect you for as long as they can protect you, and when you're no longer useful to them, they'll just stop. They'll use you as a sacrificial lamb to kind of protect their organization's image.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So they always do it when they need to make it appear that we punish our own.
Right. They don't. And that's what they use them for.
I mean, okay, example, Andrew Cuomo as a governor.
Yep.
He was held up and then eventually
they ate him when it was convenient.
Yep.
They propped him up.
It's the same thing with I don't know where it's standing right now, but the governor of New York. I mean, he was being held up, and then he questioned the immigration policy, and now he's being eaten alive too.
You're talking about Eric Adams. That's the mayor of New York City.
That's mayor,
yeah.
Did I say
the governor?
Oh, sorry. I
was thinking of Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, I meant mayor. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that happens with a lot of them, and then
anybody who's a rising star in a progressive movement almost always gets shattered.
Eventually. Did you guys see recognize the other part though about why Mark really doesn't want Jane to come to Bellbury?
Because he's ashamed of it.
Yeah, because if she was there, her influence would force him to see the vulgarity.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It shows the influence of a wife, really.
It really does. Yeah. I would agree with that. Like her being there would change his behavior in the right way.
Going back to this obedience thing, if they're obedient to each other, neither one of them would be in this situation.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they were in marriage for companionship that wasn't really companionship.
Yeah, they're just together.
So they learn a lot about their marriage through their time apart in this book.
At one point in this book, too, McAfee, we didn't really talk about him, but his comment to Jane, he had a comment to Jane where he said that loyalty is a virtue too important to be lavished on individual personalities. I forget when it was that he said that, but he was like doubting the director.
Yeah, because he's the one guy in the organization of the good guys in this book, the Ransom's crew, who questions everything. Kind of tries to keep everybody from basically the loyalty that happens in Dune, like following a messiah to your own fault. He wants to make sure that when people are following Ransom, they're doing it for the right reason. And he's questioning everything all the way through, which you don't have in the book Dune. And I'm only mentioning that because we read that one recently. And one of the reasons that it was written was to kind of caution you away from following.
Paul the entire time is trying to prevent people from doing that.
Right.
I mean, that's our next. Isn't that our next book?
Yeah, it's our next book. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to talk about that one.
We're gonna have to set aside multiple hours for that book.
Yeah.
That might be a multi-parter.
There was another one too where
maybe we skip a CHRILLCAST one to do that one twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was another part in this book where the statement was, what should they regard as too obscene, since they held that all morality was a mere subjective byproduct of the physical and economic situations of men?
That's a question the Nice hold.
I forget where it was stated in here, but this was, I think, I can't remember where it's mentioned, but it's like, it's a question.
Was it Frost that asked that question?
No, it's a question with regards to the that there's no limits to the nice. How bad?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's. I didn't write down the page or anything. It's just
no science is unworthy of their pursuit.
Yeah, basically, there's nothing that's too obscene. They'll do anything because they believe everything is just the physical and economic situations.
They look at people as warm bodies to be done with as they pleased.
Mm-hmm. Ransom has a whole part where, or maybe it was Merlin, might have been Merlin. Childless marriages are an attack on the purpose of marriages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think we should probably get into rating this book at some point.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that like really stuck? Like, okay, how about this? What's something you guys didn't like about the book? Is there anything that you specifically didn't like?
Well, one thing, because we mentioned it. One last thing, because we mentioned it for the experimental and the punishment thing. So this statement summarized it. This new idea of cure. This is Hardcastle, I believe. This new idea of cure instead of punishment, seeming humane, had in fact deprived the criminal of all rights, and by taking away the name punishment, made the thing infinite.
Yep.
Which is basically our criminal justice system this day and age.
Well, you have permanent prison inmates essentially. They leave.
It also encompasses a lot of the straight up torture that it did on mental patients.
Yeah.
Where like there was no end point. They just kept torturing them.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't really a time where you get well and leave. There was none of that. You got
some people can't get well though until you get to the asylums.
That's the thing is like you can't. They weren't helping them because they couldn't get well.
Some people got worse and worse until they were lobotomized. So there was that.
Well, that was cutting edge technology of medical science.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's a great movie. All right.
Yeah, all I have to say is like, who ever thought of jabbing something up in your brain is a good idea? That's just the dumbest idea.
Well, and it goes through the eye. Like that is my biggest fear. Somebody putting something right here and then swirling my brain guts around.
Yeah, that's how they get the brain out for in ancient Egyptian times for like when they mummified bodies. They would do that. They would stick a thing up your nose and they would jiggle it around to the brain liquefied and came out.
Gross.
No, thank you. How do you rate it, Chris?
This is a 5 for me. I don't see how this is like C.S. Lewis at his best for almost 400 pages or 500 depending on the copy you have. I mean, he wrote a complete story start to finish with a lot of characters and a lot of moving pieces, and at no point did I feel like this is a waste of my time reading this chapter.
This book I'd say it's a 5 for me too. This book makes me convinced that he was a better writer than Tolkien, but never.
I'm not going to go that far.
Okay, I'm just saying that if he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia,
that would be fantastic.
If every single one of the books being this style, I do believe that the Chronicles of Narnia would be a better story than Lord of the Rings.
I don't know if I go that far, but
I'm tempted to say it, honestly. I think that you have 7 books.
It's such a hypothetical.
I think it could compete with Lord of the Rings better.
It would be equivalent. It would be equivalent in the look at how good the Chronicles of Narnia are technically as they are for influence. Now you flesh them all out in this style as this book. Tell me how it does not compete on like equivalent level with.
Well, I would give it. I would put it at an equivalent. This book does compete at an equivalent plane with Lord of the Rings.
Yes,
it's written to that level. This is a really good book.
I'm just saying that the sheer expanse of what the Chronicles of Narnia actually covers with multiple different stories and stuff it would be different obviously than how Lord of the Rings is, but let's be honest, Lord of the Rings, the trilogy is different than the other stories from the universe.
Yeah. Will, where do you have the story at?
I'm not going to rank it as high. So I'm going to rank this as a 4. It's not because I didn't like the book. I really enjoyed this book. I think this might be my favorite C.S. Lewis story, other than like the Secret Tape Letters or something. But an actual story, I think this is my favorite. I really like what he can do when he doesn't have a page requirement or a page restriction.
Well, what takes it down from a 5 to a 4?
Just honestly, it's just some of the random things he throws in there that
That's fair.
mean, it's as a trilogy. So I realize we're not summarizing the entire trilogy, but there's definitely things that should have been at least hinted towards earlier that are pivotal in this book that really were just thrown into to tie it into like random English mythology. And although it's enjoyable as a fairy tale, it's still just like, what is going on?
Okay, come on though. Are you gonna?
I don't think. Look, if you're ranking this book based on the first 2 books being part of this trilogy, because people are going to read those and then be like, "Nah, I ain't reading this 3rd book that's super long." Then, I mean, I might give you a fair assessment. But we're ranking this book without consideration of the first 2.
So I still do that because the Merlin and Fisher King aspect was absolutely just thrown in there so freaking randomly. I still enjoyed it. I understand the symbolism, but it's still like, what the is going on?
I mean, okay, when you have Lord of the Rings, though, the Fellowship, right?
Yeah.
Tom Bombadil's just randomly in there.
I just got through the Tom Bombadil chapters, and I'm like,
saying,
what the heck?
They like to do this random shit. Lewis and Tolkien, they just like to throw some random shit in their stories. Are you going to say that
Tom Bombadil doesn't make any sense? Yeah,
yes. Are you going to say that the Fellowship needs to be brought down on the ranking because of Tom Bombadil?
Oh, I have some serious thoughts on the Fellowship, and I'm not talking about it right now.
No, that's in the future, Chris.
That's a future episode. Yeah.
I don't know, this is hard because 5 is a coveted spot, and I only have a few books there.
Yeah, but okay, we've given.
Did you give Screwtape Letters a 5, or did you give it a 4?
I did. I gave it a 5.
We gave 5.
Is this on par with Screwtape Letters, or is it too far down the hatch?
No, like I said, the thing is, like,
does this
4
compete
is still
with
really high? Like, you guys.
What did you give Silverchair and Horse and His Boy?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
I think you gave a 5 to one of those.
That's why I'm asking, because I want to make sure that your scale makes sense.
This is why we need to bring these scales up. Okay, fine. With the C.S. Lewis books, I'll give it a 5. How about that? On the C.S. Lewis scale, this is probably a 7.
I mean, if this was
when we do the trilogy recap after Dune, I do want to compare this series with Narnia, because I think that just naturally happens when you've read Narnia and then you read this book.
I think Andrew has touched on this 100 times. Like, I wish he had done this to all of the Narnia stories, because I would have loved to have read those.
Right.
My biggest complaint with all those stories is they're so rushed.
Yeah, they are rushed.
Halfway through rushed.
Yeah. Like, you use good build up, and then suddenly like things happen and it ends.
Like, that's
like he got to the middle of this book and finished it, and the rest of the books he got to the middle, like he would be like right here somewhere.
And then
time to end it.
No, but like, okay, you guys ranked Don Treader much higher than I would have, because I thought that was not fleshed out enough. as a story for the journey through the different islands.
Deep, though.
Huh?
I liked Deep or whatever his name was.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I thought that was one of those stories where while the story was a good overall journey, it struggled the most for that lack of detail that a lot of other ones didn't, because like the other ones were written in a way where he wanted to end them, but this one did the full freaking story. He just didn't give it enough depth throughout. Yeah. So it's like that was the frustrating thing about the Dawn Treader compared to like Silverchair and Horse and His Boy, which I do think are both 5 rankings in his chronicles. So it's like this book right here, as far as the space trilogy goes, but also in comparison to those, is on par, if not better.
Yeah. So like in that regard, it's definitely a 5. This is tough though, because it's supposed to be a sci-fi book, and I would not rank this anywhere near Dune. So
well, I wouldn't even rank this as
this is kind of a
this one is not sci-fi.
Okay, fair enough. It's sci-fi theology. So, but Dune is too. So
no, but this one is not sci-fi.
Here's a funny story. A lot of people don't talk about Dune as a sci-fi, even though it clearly is, because the elements of the sci-fi in it are like
limited.
They use knives, but they have energy shields. Like it's just a bizarre culture. So like this book, yes, it is sci-fi. They have a reanimated head with a bunch of stuff attached to it.
It's demonic though. But it's not really science. Like it's not really sci-fi because it's not like it's futuristic.
But it's sci-fi. That's the thing people don't get. Sci-fi doesn't have to be futuristic.
No.
Okay, fine.
So this is still sci-fi, but it's a different kind of sci-fi. It's like a philosophical sci-fi of a progressive movement on Earth.
I mean, I would 100% say that the first 2 are sci-fi. This one does not feel as sci-fi because the shit that they were he's having them do to that head at the time was perfectly aligned with the types of experiments that crazy ass doctors were doing. So I struggle with the sci-fi classification, even though they have science in it. It's more of a modern fiction novel of the era.
It's progressive social science, but it's still science fiction.
How is it science fiction if the science was actually like something people were trying to do? I understand that you have the fact that he uses it's not the head. The head isn't actually animated though to talk. So it's not like he had to do something that they couldn't do at the time. It's just
they're keeping the head alive so the demon can possess it.
Yeah. Well, so like it can have science fiction elements because it doesn't have to be futuristic or something exceptional. It just be science adjacent.
It's alternative science.
An example of this is the Dan Brown books. So some of his books have science adjacent stories where like they have the antimatter bomb that they try to blow up the Vatican with, and Angels and Demons. Yeah, we can probably get to that point, and we probably have things that are similar, but it's not real.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It just has to be fictional science to make it science fiction. If sci-fi doesn't have to be futuristic.
This is totally random, Chris. Have you read Angels and Demons?
Is that a Dan Brown book?
Yeah, I know you don't like Dan Brown book for the second book in that series, but the first one is honestly really good.
I barely know who Dan Brown is.
Angels and Demons was good.
I'd have to look him up. I don't know.
The controversy happens with the second one.
He's not the Left Behind series, is he?
I don't think so.
What is he? Is he the Da Vinci Code?
Yeah, the second book in that series is the Da Vinci Code, and everyone.
Okay, all right, okay. I mean, it's a real reason. I would probably give it a good writing. Like I would call it good writing, but I wouldn't say it's good theology.
Just the first book is nothing like the second book. So
I believe you.
Yeah, the first book is. We're not talking about that right now. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Okay, but long story short, I think this is probably C.S. Lewis's most complete story.
Yeah, I really enjoy this book.
It is. I think we can easily say that that's his most complete story.
Out of all 3, if I was just going to tell a layperson about like reading one of these books, this would be the one I would suggest.
I would probably still recommend Paralandra.
It depends on who it is.
Out of these 3 books, okay.
Yeah, out of these.
Because honestly, I would still rank like The Horse and His Boy higher, just because I like that one a lot.
They're both 5s, but this one's a better 5.
Well, yeah, because that universe is more compelling to me.
Fair enough. All right. Is there anything else we haven't said that we need to say before we call it tonight?
Not specifically about this book, but our next book is
Will should introduce that one.
Yeah. Our next book is going to be Dune, and I am so pumped. Yes, we're going to learn about sandworms. We're going to learn about messiahs, all kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and look up the covers of all the original books and tell me that God Emperor of Dune is not the weirdest cover of a book.
Dude, don't look it up. Ignore what Chris just said. Do not look up the original book covers because they give away the story beats, Chris. So don't do that.
You don't know what that actually is. Nobody can tell me what that is.
You will once you get to the second book, Chris. You'll know exactly what it is.
Looks like a giant turd with a face on it.
Yeah. Nope. You'll know what it is if you get further in the first book.
All right. Yeah. On that note, as always, I'm Chris.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Will.
And we'll see you guys on Arrakis. Bye, guys.